So Eric, you've been posting quite a bit.
I've been what?
Someone's got to take the keyboard away from Eric.
Eric's been pretty chatty.
On the blog.
Because none of us will talk to him.
It's true. I feel very alone.
Anything interesting coming up? What's in the pipeline?
Oh, what, you don't read them?
I don't think.
I read
LDR.
funny ones. I'll peruse, but once I feel like it's sexual, I'm like, no. I read the theme song one.
That wasn't Eric.
Yeah. That was
Eric.
I'll read those kind of blogs. Speaking of which, are you guys impressed by the submissions?
No.
Oh!
No. There's a lot of duplicates in there. A lot of people said the same thing over and over again.
Don't steal other people's ideas.
Control F, people.
That's not
contest.
Did everyone say sabotage? Was that what it was?
Everyone said the same, like 3 or 4 songs that were like obvious too.
Sabotage Brent's recommendation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Brent can't win, so someone else could just come home.
What was your song for that? Did you submit? What was your song? What's your theme song then for an outage? What would you pick?
Oh, I don't know. I forget. I was pretty drunk when I posted it.
I guess we didn't submit anything, but that wouldn't make sense. We can't win.
Bunch of slackers.
I wouldn't vote for Eric anyway, so.
Yeah, conflict of interest.
Unless you did all police songs, and then you would automatically win.
No thanks.
I did go looking for the bands that I like in the list. I did, Control F.
Hi, Kitty. Fun fact about Richie. Richie has 6 cats? 5 cats.
6 cats.
6 cats. Can you imagine that?
Most of them are alive too.
Most of them.
You can have your own Instagram handle and just take pictures of your cats all day.
Yeah, Brent would love that. What were you doing? Well, I was just taking pictures of cats. You know how it goes.
Do they all sleep with you?
No. They like on and off. There's about 3 on the bed at any given time.
Oh my gosh.
So this is our oldest. This is Smokey. He's 17.
Wow.
We got him before, I guess we haven't been married a year yet. And we got Smokey. And he's a daredevil. He we locked him in the refrigerator once, which was always fun.
How does that even happen?
Lucy went in the refrigerator to get some water or something, and then, a couple hours later, we're looking around like, where's the cat? Don't know where the cat is. When's the last time you saw him? I was by the refrigerator. Did you look in the refrigerator? Open the door. There's the cat. Like, what are you?
My cat got caught in the dryer once. It's a very similar scenario.
Wow.
She left the dryer door open, especially after taking clothes out where it's still nice and warm. She hopped in, and I'm convinced at least one time I accidentally started it.
Yeah, that would be really sad if you started it.
What's that noise in the dryer? I'm not sure.
She's still okay. She's downstairs right now, sitting in front of the heater vent where there's a bench above it. So it makes this perfect little spot where she likes to curl up. And I went and pet her, and she was like 1,000,000 degrees because she was just getting all of the hot air.
They like the heat. They definitely do. I was thinking of I got 2 leashes for my cats to see if I can teach them how to walk outside.
It's a lot more difficult than you think. Have you tried it, Richie?
Good luck.
Have you tried it?
No.
Yeah, I have. My cat hates it. I've got the little harness for her around the legs, and she hates it. But if she wants to come outside, because she always thinks she wants to go outside, but she's terrified of being outside, I've put that on her a couple times, and she's like, I don't really know about this. And she like
curls up in the ball.
drops her body to the ground. It's kind of entertaining, at least.
All right. It's about that time, I guess we should start talking about SQL Server.
Boo.
Oh, yeah.
That's,
We don't want
Boring.
to do that. No.
I think we need some questions before we can talk about SQL Server.
yeah, guys. 79 people, 81 people. You think somebody would have some questions? Oh, we do have questions. We have questions about SSRS. I know Eric likes those.
I know it. I've never opened SSRS in my life.
Have you really
Actually,
never opened? Yes, you
never.
have.
No, I would never. Ugh, for what?
Oh, what? Yeah, that's not Eric. That's just no.
That's Doug.
That's
Yeah, but
Doug.
still.
That's me. That's not Eric.
No.
So for somebody that is suddenly experiencing slowness in that area, you wouldn't have any advice for them?
We would, because it's probably not an SSRS issue. It's
Yeah.
probably the underlying query. So if it's a, you take a look at the store procedure or the query that's inside the report and check its execution plan, compare it to, if you're able to compare it to previous runs. Maybe you need to set up SP Who's Active to start tracking this so that you can do the comparisons. Maybe you just need to update statistics on the tables that are involved. I would look at execution plans and statistics. I don't think that the issue's with SSRS.
Andy, did you hear that? That was a question from Andy Larson. So I hope you wrote that one down. Let's see here. Availability groups, that's another one that we love. Seriously, we get SSRS and availability groups for the questions that we get most often. Do you know the maximum number of databases you could set up within an availability group?
It's high. We don't recommend it though.
It's not a goal. It's a
Yeah.
limit.
It's not a race.
Is it high as in 50 or is it high as in
It's
300?
probably 1,000, I would
Yeah,
imagine.
it's thousands.
Have you seen that?
No.
No.
No one in their right mind would do that.
Yeah.
More databases. Let's see. Sean has a question. He says, we currently use DPM for our SQL backups. Should I make an argument to switch to native backup, or is there not a benefit of one versus the other?
Yeah. I don't know, Angie. What do you think?
Well,
Yes.
I just saw it for the first time ever the last week, I think. And you can't do log backups any more frequently than 15 minutes. So if you want more or less data loss, you aren't going to have a great time with DPM. And also, it was really confusing for me. Maybe you like that GUI, but compared to SQL native backups, it was really confusing. You group them weirdly in protection groups, and it was just not very simple for me to use.
Let's see, a question from James. He says, my database log files, temp DB drives are defaulted to 4,096 bytes. Would you recommend to format the drives to 64 kilobytes for better performance?
While you probably should do that, I wouldn't recommend it now unless you're having a problem, just because formatting is going to take some time. Depends on if you're on the SAN or local drives, or what the impact is going to be. But maybe on your next system when you're upgrading, make sure you have this in place.
Yeah, the other thing is I would really want to make sure that I'm seeing something that I can directly correlate to that being a problem before I went ahead and did anything with it.
Fix for something.
That would be a really interesting metric to have, information on. It's like, oh, the block size is the problem. The block size is the problem. I don't go home. The job is done.
Ooh.
You just missed the SSRS talk.
We can go back.
Shame.
You just missed it.
Oh, well.
All right. Let's see. A question from Pete. What are your thoughts on implementing a 2-node cluster across 2 data centers with always on availability groups?
It would depend upon the distance between them. Are you using Enterprise Edition? If the distance is a lot, are you going to be using asynchronous? Is it going to be async replicas? So we really would need more information. And what kind of background do you have in clustering that you are able to support availability groups? Because it's not just a slam dunk setup.
All right. Question from Joe O'Connor. Let's see. Happy St. Patrick's Day, Joe O'Connor. Your team regularly advocates using separate instances as much as possible to ease troubleshooting. With a small one-man DBA team, does it make sense to combine applications to reduce the number of separate instances that need to be maintained? We've licensed SQL Enterprise for maximum virtualization, so we can go any route we need.
No, because then you have separate applications all vying for the same resources, and that's just as bad and confusing.
So you would not recommend that. Is there anything
No.
else? Gotcha. Just no.
Just no. Separate as much as you can. You've already licensed Enterprise, it sounds like, at the host level, so you can roll out as many of those Enterprise instances as you want. So why would you put more stuff together when you've already paid for all those cores? Separate stuff out, man.
Gotcha. But we normally advocate not separating things out. No? Okay, so that's false.
No. Incorrect.
Incorrect. All right, let's move on to a mirroring question from Chris. Can I use mirroring and or log shipping to speed up a migration to a new SQL Server? I'm thinking of cases where the basic backup and restore method of migration will not meet our maintenance window.
Yes, and they're wonderful for that.
Yeah, I agree. I've done it with log shipping, mirroring, or even just manually doing the backup and restores. When I say manual, I mean I'm scripted so that I can do bulk backups and restores with just a script rather than one at a time.
Yeah, the only thing you want to be careful of is with the migration is if you're going to a new version of SQL, like a new edition from like 2012 to 2014, you can't back in that situation because you've already moved your data to a higher level, higher
Version?
Yeah. So there you go. Careful on that.
It's been a while since we've office houred. Got to get back in there.
Yeah, I'm exhausted.
The question from Erik. He says, I have a developer that is running a query, doing a data load, and it is consuming a high percentage of CPU. He said there is nothing he can do to change it, and it has to run. What is the best thing I can do? Force him to just use one CPU?
So you can't change the code, but can you change anything else?
Can you change the developer?
Indexes?
Yeah.
Or can you change, like, can you force them to use like a simple recovery database? Probably, if they're data loading into some database with full recovery, you obviously can't get the handy dandy minimal logging and other things that sort of help you chew through less resources. So if you can't change the code itself, perhaps you can change some of the environmental factors. I wouldn't say just restrict him to one CPU because then it's going to be really slow. It's going to want to chomp that one CPU. So.
Sorry. Right into the microphone.
You agree completely.
Is Angie, is that your cat?
No, it's my cat.
Tara has a cat.
Way over there.
Ceiling cat.
I think she has a sequel question.
I was hopeful that if I put her on my lap that she would stop meowing because she was screaming at me on the floor.
The cat equivalent of the F word. That's all.
So I mean, jumping back to what Erik was saying, I mean, who knows if you go ahead and throw one CPU, you may have locks being thrown all over the place because now it's taking slower to do things. So, I would look at the code and see if there's something that you could do from that perspective. But I'm a developer, so that's what I would do. So.
There's as a developer, there's always more than one way to do things, and I know that he said there is nothing he can do to change it. Now, if it's vendor code, maybe I'll believe it. If it's in-house stuff, I'm not so sure about that.
Yeah, if it's a routine that he wrote, then he absolutely can change it. He's just being lazy. He's back talking you, man. Don't take that.
Yeah, maybe look into bulk loading methods.
All right. Question from Ben. He says, if I want to log ship SSRS to a DR environment, the DB log shipping is the easy part. What else do I have to look out for?
I don't quite understand the question. So are you log shipping the databases that your reports are pointing to, or are you looking to log ship the report server databases?
Log ship SSRS to a DR environment. The DB log shipping is the easy part.
I think that they're asking about the report server databases, the report server TempDB database. You don't need a log ship. report store, I wouldn't even log ship that. I mean, I assume it's supported, but maybe it probably is not.
He says the SSRS databases and the databases.
Yeah, so it's like a generalized log shipping question, but then it also happens to include reporting services. Yeah, like the reporting services databases, unless you need to recover snapshots for some reason, there's really not much that you'd have to really worry about keeping fresh. You know, usually a day old or even longer is fine with the reporting services stuff. It's the regular databases, you know, that's the whole, what do I do with, you know, disaster recovery on the database side. That's a totally different story.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to be concerned about anything that doesn't reside inside those user databases, like logins, jobs, anything that's external to the user database would need to be scripted also to copy over.
Mm-hmm. All right, question from Michael. He says, what's your take on using mirrored backup sets across a WAN, W-A-N, where the source and target are 1,500 miles apart?
No.
I hope it doesn't need to be synchronous.
Yeah, I wouldn't use a mirrored backup set for that. I would take my backup to the close one, and then I would copy that to the far one. I wouldn't want my, like, you know, actual factual native backup getting mirrored that far away and like slowing down the backup process itself. I would want to get it down local as fast as I can, and then, you know, copy it off at a leisurely pace 1,500 miles away.
Actually, on a couple of my recent sales calls, people have been asking about archiving methodologies, data archiving. That's been coming up quite a bit. We have a question about that from Kimberly. She says, what would be a recommendation for data archiving with intent of reducing the size of the production database? When we delete old data from production, they don't want that to be replicated. They're looking at transaction replication.
Okay, so do you actually delete data from production, or are you marking it as archived? Because there's a huge difference between the two.
Yeah, the hard and soft deletes are two, you know, pretty separate entities.
Yeah.
Sounds like they're running deletes and they just don't want the deletes to be replicated. You don't have to replicate deletes on any particular article. You can have that option turned off.
Yeah, she says actually deleting.
Yeah, so is it the actual deletes that you don't want replicated to the subscriber? If so, just change your configuration.
Yeah, that's
The
what she
deletes
said.
aren't replicated. It's part of the replication configuration on the article.
If you're doing soft deletes, there's actually a way to filter what you replicate, so you can filter out, like, you know, like things that were soft deleted from replication.
The clients that were reaching out to us were, it was a slew of healthcare clients that we had, and they had, due to the HIPAA requirements, you have to keep your data for 7 years.
Yep.
And that was no small heap.
Just like your taxes. Or is it 10?
I don't know.
That's right.
All mine run on this hard drive that got erased. It's a real bummer. I don't know what to do.
Hope you don't get audited.
No, because, you know, it's like I got the magnets from Brent and I stuck it in the drawer, and then there was a hard drive with all my tax information on it. So.
And then my 200 megabyte quantum Bigfoot was erased. Never be seen again.
Shamefully, it turned out backups were failing.
Yeah.
Let's see, question from Serge. She says, how often would you recommend to run index optimization and CheckDB in production and in test and development environments?
In a reserved way, I would say at least weekly for DBCC CheckDB, right? I'll at least have something in there. The real answer is as often as you can. And as far as the index stuff goes, you know, just make sure that you're not, you know, following the 5 and 30% thresholds, because those are way too aggressive and low. You're going to spend a lot of time dealing with fragmentation that isn't really a problem. You know, if you want to scale it up to, like, say, you know, 40% for a reorg and 70 or 80% for a rebuild, but just make sure that you stay on top of the statistics stuff, because the statistics updates are really what make or break you. They're the things that really help people make good or bad decisions. So updating statistics to me is far more important than dealing with fragmentation.
Mm-hmm. All right. Question from, or statement from Monica Midler. She says, someone retired. They owned SQL agent jobs. Things broke. If we use one proxy credential account for all jobs, what type of permissions should that account have? And how many proxy accounts does a typical large server generally have?
I would just recommend changing all the agent jobs to use the SA account instead, and just have a job that runs that maybe an SSIS package that loops through all your servers, and just daily make sure everything is set to SA. I wouldn't even bother with the setting up proxies, credential accounts, or any of that.
Yeah.
Just SA.
Yeah, and
There's nothing against it.
yeah, SP Blitz will very helpfully point out exactly what agent jobs are not owned by SA. So run that through and give yourself a little audit there, and it will bark at you for all the stuff that SA should own but doesn't.
Meow.
When you don't use SA and it's someone's Windows credentials, I had a lot of jobs set up with my Windows credentials, and those jobs would stop failing. I hadn't even left the company. My account was still valid. So that's when we started just having all jobs run as SA instead.
Yeah, all it takes is a fat-fingered domain admin to swing and a miss and shut off the wrong account, and then you got problems.
Yeah, mine had to do with like it wasn't able to reach Active Directory, at that moment in time, or something like that, and it just, we didn't want to take that chance anymore.
We just had a new version of Blitz come out this weekend.
Oh yeah.
Who was working on that? Eric?
I put a bunch of stuff in there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Too much stuff to list.
Ben says thank you for the new version.
You're welcome. I was pretty drunk for most of that too. Just kidding. It's all good, guys. Don't worry about it.
Yes, he was.
Oh boy. Yeah. So that came out this weekend. If you haven't downloaded it, you should do that. While we're on the topic of scripts, let's see. Thomas asks, do you have any scripts or know of any for full text index maintenance?
I would worry about that far less than I would worry about regular index maintenance. It takes a lot for those to really get fragmented to the point where it would impact you. Those things crawl incrementally, so it's not like so like when you add data to them, it crawls in incrementally. So it's going to be really hard to like fragment those to a point where it would really matter.
All right. Karen asks, what would be recommended for synchronizing a hosted database to our data warehouse?
How up to the minute does it have to be? Because you have a lot of options for that, but depending on how real time it has to be, then that kind of dictates what the technology you'd use is.
What's the norm? Is there an industry standard for that?
I mean, for Microsoft products, it's probably SSIS, but it just depends what technologies you're using here. I mean, obviously you're using SQL Server, but what about your data warehouse? At a previous job, they were using Informatica, and we had to use Replication to get the data to it.
Yeah, well, and if you need something really close to real time too, Replication is about the only answer, right?
Yeah. Because like you can take database snapshots of mirroring, and you can take, you can have people work off log shipping stuff, but that's not going to be your data warehouse data. Your data warehouse data gets transformed along the way. So really it's going to come down to Replication or, SSIS for you, depending on how up to date it has to be.
See, Ryan asks, if an Active Directory group gets renamed after it's been added as a SQL Server login, do you need to manually rename it in SSMS?
I don't believe so, because I believe that SQL Server is storing the SID, but
That'd be my guess too.
yeah. I know that's true for logins, just not positive on groups. I suspect it's just all going to work flawlessly without any changes on the SQL side.
All right. Larry asks, we have two databases, DB1 and DB2 in location A. They are mirrored to location B. Also, there is transactional replication from DB1 to DB2. Is it possible to keep replicated synced after failover in SQL 2008? To keep
I need to reread this. They are mirrored.
It's from Larry Fredrickson.
DB1 and DB2 are okay. They're at the same data center, mirrored to another data center. You have to. Well, after failover, what kind of failover are you doing? Is this clustering that they're in? But okay, so I've done a lot of failovers with the replication in place. You need to, when you do the failover, you need to set up replication again. You don't necessarily have to do a snapshot to get it back in sync, because as long as you had everything shut down when the failover occurred, assuming a planned failover, then everything is already in sync. And you just set up replication and specify that it's already in sync, and it just starts. The log reader agent will just start from there once you start letting data flow in.
All right.
Actually, Tara, I have an interesting question on that for you. Because like when you do a restore initially for database mirroring, like when you do that first restore, you can still have the option to preserve replication. So if you do that, do you still have to set stuff up after a failover? You still have to like kick it off or anything?
You still have to, because let's see. So when
you can answer me later if you want. It was just a
replication doesn't come over with the failover. So you have to have everything put back in place, and you're just not specifying the option to reinitialize it with a snapshot.
Okay, that makes sense then.
Let's see. Todd says, in about 7 months, we'll be upgrading to a new version of SQL. My manager wants SQL 2014, but 2016 will have been out by then. And I hear people shouldn't wait until SP1 is out for the paranoid. Thoughts?
I mean, it's, you know, what are your needs as far as features go? I mean, I don't like the idea of being a version behind when a version has just come out, but I also don't like the idea of being, you know, the first, you know, company on, you know, a new version. Microsoft is moving away from the service packs, you know, having those, they're going to be using cumulative update packages instead. I mean, I think that they are going to have service packs, but they're not going to be as often. So if companies are waiting for SP1 to come out, they're going to be waiting a long time. Which one to use? I don't know. It's hard to say.
Yeah. Did anyone else see this? I think Nick Craver mentioned that Stack Overflow was going to move to 2016, like even before RTM.
Yeah, that's not surprising. They move forward very, very quickly.
Yes.
Yeah, but they have the engineering staff that can handle pretty much anything.
Yeah.
There's a
excited about.
I forget what it's called, but you can be a certain customer of Microsoft where you are a beta customer of pre-release versions of SQL Server, and they provide you extra help in case you run into any bugs. I forget what the term is. We were looking into becoming one of those customers a few jobs ago. We didn't end up doing it just because of the risk involved, but Microsoft gives you special support if you run production on a non-RTM version of SQL Server.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a functionality that you're excited about, maybe, you know, it's the query store or something like that, you know, try to make a business case for it. Hey, we could do this better, and we'd save X amount of dollars if we went ahead and used 2016.
Or if you're really excited about Power BI. No, I'm not kidding. I mean, if you're really thrilled about the SSRS stuff that's coming and can't wait for it, there's that too.
Oh.
Yeah, they're doing some good stuff. I'm not going to lie.
Yep.
Well, they're doing some stuff, which is a change of pace from the no stuff they were doing before.
Also true, yes.
You mean the dark decade of SSRS? The lost decade?
When I could give the same talk 5 years straight and nothing would have changed, yes.
10 years straight, I mean.
Yeah.
Let's see. Rachel has a question. Hi, I have a database which is 1 terabyte in size, and one of the main tables, which contains almost 500 gigabytes, has cluster fragmentation for 40%. Do you have any recommendations on rebuilding the index?
What version of SQL Server are you running? Enterprise or lower? Can you do an online index rebuild? If you can't, do you have a maintenance window? Not necessarily one where someone has to be on staff and watching it, but, you know, can it run at night? And do you have an environment where you've tested how long this takes on that size database, that size table?
Also, before undertaking something like that, I would want to make sure that I had solid numbers that it was affecting performance or something in some way. Like, you know, if you haven't restored to dev somewhere, and you can, like, you know, run a query on it and then run that same query again after rebuilding or reorganizing and prove that there was some improvement because of that, then, you know, I would move forward with it in prod. But until then, you know, you don't actually know that you're fixing anything by, you know, by doing maintenance on that index.
We had index maintenance completely turned off on our most critical system, our most critical database. 2 jobs ago. The only issue was storage. You know, we were using a lot more storage than we would have if we had been fragmenting it. We just couldn't afford the index rebuild or even the reorgs to run due to the setup that we had. It was a very high transactional environment using availability groups. Very complicated setup, and we just could no longer run them. We didn't have any performance issues because we were constantly updating statistics. Just storage. Storage was a big problem.
All right, question from Mary. She says, we have a database where we dynamically generate tables for use within the application. It has over 500K tables. Running
Yikes.
running DBBC takes a very long time. Is it needed when the tables are mostly created, populated, and then used for read-only? Data is not changed frequently.
How many of them are still being used? Like, do all 500,000 tables plus get queried regularly?
Do you have a purge process?
Yeah, because that would. I mean, the most obvious thing to me is like, okay, here's the thing, users. Your table will exist for X amount of days or X amount of weeks. After that, we're going to purge it, and you will have to recreate it if you need it again. I would not just keep 500,000 tables in perpetuity, regardless of size or anything. You know, that's pretty rough.
If you can afford running DBCC, I assume you mean CheckDB. We do recommend that you do a backup and restore to another environment where you can let that process just run. You do still need to be able to check for corruption.
Yeah. The other thing you can do is, DBCC commands can be run in chunks and bits. So you could separate, these. You can run DBCC CheckDB, and you can run it at like the table level. You can run things in different chunks. So actually, Paul Randall has a good post on that. It's called DBCC from Every Angle, where he talks about, I believe, how to break things up into chunks and run things over a series of days or whatever.
And hey, with the new DBCC CheckDB, some of that stuff just gets left on the table by default.
It's so fast.
It's so fast.
Yeah.
Welcome back.
So if that's what you need, take a look at 2016.
I feel so sorry. 500K. Wow.
Yeah, that's rough. Whatever you do, don't open the tables.
Yeah,
Object Explorer.
You're not using Object Explorer on that.
Right. And IntelliSense would just block your whole system down.
It
Is
should just point back and say, nope.
Yes.
Nope.
Is SQL 2005 still supported?
For like a
So
month.
right now, but a few
Barely.
more days. Few more days, it's
Last thread
gone.
is fraying.
April 12th.
Yeah,
April
less than
12th?
3 weeks.
So
Is that
is
happy hour?
For a lot of people, yeah.
It will be for me.
so we will no longer be working with SQL 2005.
Nope.
Maybe Doug.
The French.
For an extra cost of.
There is an outdated version of SQL Server.
We do have a SQL 2005 question. So since it is still supported, let's take a stab at it.
Just in under the wire.
Well, look at the time. Well,
Oh,
He says, I have a SQL 2005 mirror, and we create
Not for long.
Not for long. And we create a snapshot on the mirror for reporting purposes. And usually creating a snapshot takes 2 to 3 minutes. But sometimes it takes up to 3 hours to create the snapshot. I've looked in the logs, not sure why this happens. Can you advise on what would be the best place to see why this might be happening?
I would be looking at I/O, I think. Isn't that a highly I/O intensive
Well,
process?
it shouldn't be, because it does like what DBCC check does, where it uses a sparse file and it just kind of takes a little picture of the database. So the only thing I can imagine is maybe it's having trouble getting whatever, locks or whatever it needs to get that snapshot taken. I would run it. I would actually monitor, like, what my weight stats are while I try to create that snapshot. That's the only thing I can think of to troubleshoot it.
I wonder if it's an issue with sparse files. We ran into an issue many years ago in SQL 2005 with the database snapshots on the mirrored servers. I had to open, I don't remember what the exact issue was, but I had to open up a ticket with Microsoft, and it had to do with the Windows sparse files, and we ended up having to create multiple data files to work around the problem.
Interesting.
That's great.
Cool. What's everybody doing this weekend? Anything fun?
No.
ask.
But it's Batman versus Superman weekend, right? I mean, that's what we're all doing.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
just going to see it over and over again, right? I mean, that's
What everybody should be doing. Cool. Well, we are up to time. And we have 1 minute left, but I gotta go blow my nose. So.
So we are done.
Goodbye.
All right, bye guys.